Hello there and welcome to the Double Zero Challenge channel. We do just one thing on this channel and it's to take these two D10 dice and see how long it takes before we roll a double zero. If you would like to play along, please write down your guess now, but don't write it in the comments, just keep it to on your own bit of paper. Let other people watch the video and work it out for themselves. There'll be more things to explain as we go along, but with odds of 1 in 100 against us, let's get cracking. So, roll number 1. And that is a 0, but it's a 6. Remember, we're looking for a double 0 here. And that's a 3 and a 9. Okay, that's an 8 on the board and a 6 off the board. It counts nonetheless. If you're a regular, you know there's little editing. If something goes wrong, we just carry on within reason. And that is a 9 and a 7. I don't think anything unreasonable has happened so far. That's a 1 and a 3. And we have a 9 and a 3. And that's a 3 and a 1. And we have a 5 and an 8. And that's an 8 and a 6. And a 5 and an 8. Excuse me, sorry, a 5 and an 8. Like I say, we carry on. That's a double 1. Now, we look at any other doubles we get as well. You'd expect, on the way to odds of 1 in 100, you'd expect to see 9 other doubles, so we will put them on the bottom shelf there. But we carry on. And that is a 7 and a 6. And we have a 0, but we have a 5. And that's a 1 and a 3. And we have a 6 and a 7. And a double 8, so that gets put on the pile. And we have a 3 and a 4. And that's a 9 and a 6. And a double 5, just barely within the confines of the area. And we have an 8 and a 7. That's an 8 and a 9. And we have a 4 and a 7. And that's a 9 and a 2. That's a 0, but it's a 5. And we have a 3 and an 8. And that's a 5 and a 4. We have an 8 and a 5. We have a 0, but we have a 2. And that's a 6 and a 7. A 7 and a 3. And that's a 9 and a 3. We have a 0, but we have a 5. And that's a 6 and a 2. That's a 7 and a 3. And we have an 8 and a 5. We have a 3 and a 1. and that's a 1 and a 9, a 3 and a 2, and that's a 5 and a 6. We have a 7 and a 6 there. We have a 1 and a 6. That's a 0, but it's a 2. It's a 0, but it's an 8. And we have a 2 and a 9. And that's a 9 and a 1. As we approach 50, it's a good time to tell you that every 50th roll we do, it's a massive one with 2 hands. But that'll be coming up in just a moment. You'll see it for yourself. First, we have a double 4, also the fourth double of the session. We have a 0, but we have a 5. And that's a 1 and a 9. And that's a 1 and a 2. And the big one for the 50 is a double 5, also marking the 5th double of the session. But we carry on for 100 rolls. It's a 1 and a 7. And that's a 5 and a 6. And it's a double 6, becoming, you guessed it, the 6th double of the session. Not often that kind of pattern happens. And we have a 9 and an 8 there. And it's a 0, but it's a 6. And we have a 4 and a 9. And that's a 3 and a 9. We have a 0, but we have a 6. And that's a 5 and an 8. We have a 0, but we have a 9. And that's a 6 and a 5. And we have a 5 and a 9. And that's an 8 and a 4. And that's a 3 and a 6. And we have a 4 and a 1. And that's an 8 and a 9. It's a 0, but it's an 8. That is a double 4. Sling that on the pile. We have a 0, but we have a 5. We have a 0, but we have an escapee, which is a 6. So not a crucial one. And that's a 2 and a 6. And we have an 8 and a 6. And that is a 9 and a 6. And we have a 6 and a 5. We have a 9 and a 5. 9 and a 7. And that is a 9 and a 6 again. It's a double 7. Goes on the pile. Unfortunately, not the 7th. It's the 8th one this time. And we have a 7 and a 4. Like I say, we'd expect to see, hypothetically, 9 other doubles on the way to 100. It's fairly consistent so far. And that's a 5 and a 3. And we have a 9 and a 5. A 4 and an 8. And we have an 8 and a 9. It's a 0, but it's a 5. That's a 5 and a 7. And we have a 3 and a 7. And we have a 2 and a 6. We have a 0, but we have a 9. That's an 8 and a 9. And that's an 8 and a 3. We have a 4 and a 1 there. It's a 0, but it's a 6. It's a 0, but it's a 7. We have a 2 and a 1. And that's an 8 and a 6 coming up for the double hander at 100 rolls. But first, a 3 and a 7. And that's a 4 and a 6. It's a 0, but it's a 7. And we have a 9 and, oh yeah, 9 and a 9 there. Sometimes I can't quite rotate these in my head, but even I know there are lines, but still sometimes. However, it does become the 9th double of the session. And also our second double hander as we get to 100 rolls. So here we go. It's a 0, but it's a 9. Man, see if that had been double 0 on the 100, the hypothetical rolls, that would have been a near perfect game. But we carry on for 150 rolls. And that's a 2 and a 3. And we have a 2 and a 5. We have a 2 and a 5. And that's a 4 and a 9. It's a 0, but it's a 2. We have a 1 and a 5 there. And that's a 5 and a 9. And that's a 0, but it's a 9. Same trap we were in before. 6 and a 9 there. And a 2 and an 8. That's a 2 and a 1. And that's a 7 and a 1. We have a 5 and a 2. And that's a 2 and an 8. It's a 0, but it's an 8. And we have a 7 and a 1 there. And we have a 3 and a 4. And we have a 3 and a 6. And that's a 5 and a 6. We have a 6 and a 7. And that's a 2 and an 8. A 1 and an 8. And that's a 7 and a 5. And it's a double 3. We finally get up to our 10th double of the session. And we have a 0, but we have a 9. Not our first rodeo with that combination. That's an 8 and a 3. We have a 0, but we have a 2. And that's a 5 and a 4. And we have a 3 and a 7. And that's a 4 and a 1. And we have there a double 1, which is 11. And also the 11's double. Doubles are more interesting than the rolls, it must be stated. However, we have a 0 and a 5. And that's a 5 and a 4. We have a 3 and a 1. And that's a 5 and a 3. We have there a 9 and a 7. And that's a 4 and a 1. We have a 1 and a 2. And that is a double 8, bringing us up to the 12th double of the session. We've already exceeded the odds of 1 in 100. 4 and an 8. And that's a 7 and a 5. That's a 0, but it's a 6. That is a 6 and a 5. Oops. And we have a 0, but we have a 7. That's a 7 and a 4, and we're coming up to our third double-hander of the session. But first, 7 and a 4. And that's a 2 and a 3. We have a 9 and a 6. That is a double 1. And for 150 rolls, we have a 3 and a 7. So we carry on up to 200 rolls. It's a 0, but it's a 4. We have a double 2 there. And that's a 0, but it's a 1. And that's a 5 and a 6. It's a 0, but it's a 1. And that is a double 5. We have a 6 and a 4. And that's a 0, but it's a 4. And that is a double 0. 150, 159, 60. So 160 is the number of rolls. And along the way, we encountered 15 other doubles, which is roughly what you'd expect for that, exceeding the odds of 1 in 100. Anyway, these are real world conditions, not hypothetical ones. So thank you very much for watching this video. You take care and roll on next time.